This is the Dan Batard Show with the Stugotz podcast.
I'm sure that a lot of stuff from that hour with Jamel and Amin is going to end up getting aggregated because everything does these days, gets politicized, gets weaponized. I really was wondering how were people going to go after Maria Taylor, and they managed to, because if we can't agree on masks, we're going to argue about everything. And so there were a number of things in the soap opera of the weekend that I found interesting, and the racial components were part of it, but there were other things in that story that I wanted to sort of be on a runway with, whatever those things are called that the people on an airplane runway are directing traffic with, saying, hey, there's other stuff in here that you guys are examining, the micro, the racism argument of the moment, the way that we can pit Karen or Karens against black women and turn this into a race subject with the soap opera. And I want to get to those things in a second. But the first thing I want to do, because this stuff gets weaponized, is offer you the context of this show specifically being a place where this stuff will get talked about. You guys don't like it sometimes when it gets talked about. And I'm done caring what people like on this kind of subject matter, but there's a reason it's not being discussed in other places in a way that's satisfying to you. And we've got a level of freedom and expertise in the room with us, because this conversation has a number of nuanced elements to it that can get lost if we're just sitting there arguing about the things of the day that we told you while during the pandemic. Hey, this corporate word stuff doesn't matter. It's empty. Corporate words on statements as the wind blows, that there's nothing here of substance. This is the substance. And again, you're getting distracted when you've got Jamel on here with her specific pioneering resume telling you, yeah, we've known about this for a year. It's just now out in your face. And what's happened in the year since? Oh, Maria Taylor's contract is up, and it looks like there ain't an amount of money that's going to keep her there, because it's during the finals that she can leave. And keep an eye on what happens there, because they can't go to Rachel, and what happens when they go to Doris, or what happens when they try and go get someone else, because Maria Taylor would not appear. I can't even imagine, in the back rooms, what conversations are happening, how much money we got to get you to keep you here for 15 more days so we can kick this down the road so it doesn't look like Maria Taylor is making the career move that we made, that Jamel made. There's a career move to be made here from the middle of this with her silence, and with a contract that I can't believe is coming up right in the middle of this as a pressure point. I thought this was dirty, man. 3 days before that New York Times story comes out. You know that story's coming out. That story doesn't get put together in a couple of days. You know that's coming out. New York Post, check your source. New York Post, that specific newspaper, dragging Maria Taylor. She wants Stephen A. money to fester this whole cauldron that you got around the race stuff. Maria Taylor's not worth that. Who would give her that money? Where and how and why did that story get put there? Ask yourself that question, because to me it's as fascinating as the New York Times story that 3 days early, you had a year to address this. A year, and 3 days earlier, you dropped that in the New York Post. That's some bullshit.
It's my favorite thing. Again, I think having been there gives us an insight. We often assume, you always talk about Dominic Foxworth saying he assumed that NFL owners were just so much smarter than them. And then you're in there and you're like, oh my God, no, there's no organization or fiendish cunning that's going on here. It's all sloppy and just as, I guess, unprofessional or slovenly as we portray ourselves to be. So when you talk about that story, Dan, in the New York Post, yeah, that's the sloppy way to do it. right? I know what I'll do. Hey, here's another sloppy way to do it. Hey, if you have someone who hosts your main show, maybe not have their contract expire in the middle of the.
Well,
like,
I don't know. You can't plan for a pandemic.
Dan, 6 months ago they didn't know when the finals would be. 3 months ago they didn't know when the finals would be.
Do you think there's an amount of money to keep her there right now?
Now, I think there is. I think right now Maria's in the driver's seat. Either she's going to get a ridiculous amount of money from ESPN, or she can take this event and catapult her career to another level, leaving ESPN because she's got the spotlight right now.
These things have not been quiet over the last year behind the scenes. I mean, you could speak to this because I'm outside of that bubble. I'm just hearing from people about these things because you know how many, in the vanity business, you know how many turf wars there end up being. And you know specifically the unrest of the last year. Maria Taylor was someone advocating in private about the problems.
Right. Yes. I mean, and it wasn't just her. I mean, there are plenty of people because, again, you know, the stories that happen are just for talent. It's also for the people behind the scenes, the people who are making decisions, the people who are making these shows. And oftentimes, the producers who are making the shows and the people who are making the decisions, there's a disconnect there. Because, Dan, you know this. You talk about it all the time. Of the people who made decisions and levied punishments on this show, how many of them actually watched the show or listened to the show? They didn't. They weren't wholly unfamiliar with the product, but then want to parachute in and make grand sweeping decisions based on something that they didn't even watch or take the time to know about. It's the same across the company. When it comes to that situation, they'll do things without having any knowledge or grasp of what the show is about. I remember we had a management switch at the Jump, and the new person in charge had a bunch of suggestions. And then the question came up like, well, how many episodes of The Jump have you watched? And the person acknowledged, oh, maybe like a couple. Show been on for years, good ratings, and Adam Silver likes it.
That is why the show gets to have the run that it does. The league, that's one of the many dirty secrets around all of this stuff. If the league likes something that you're doing, that will be your program.
Absolutely. But the idea of, hey, we need more like stand-up shots outside an arena and call
They've been trying to fix that specific show that Maria Taylor's on for the entirety of the time it's been on, because it's not what the Charles Barkley show is, and it can't be because they're working in 3-minute windows around just an avalanche of commercials.
Well, there's a big difference. You know, the biggest difference between Inside the NBA and Countdown is Inside the NBA has the benefit of 20/20 hindsight. Countdown is setting up the game. This might happen. Watch out for this guy. Halftime, we might talk a little bit about what happened. We're saying what's going to happen in the second half. Game's over. We're going to SportsCenter.
But they also have time. They have this huge. They give this huge stage of time to be themselves.
Sure. I mean that's the obvious. But the fundamental backbone underneath Inside is that their pregame is this big. It's like maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Their postgame is 2 hours. It's so much easier to do all that when we're talking in retrospect. We're not like leading up to something. So, and then obviously then the talent and the freedom they give their talent, all that other stuff, that obviously has a huge factor. But one of the biggest things is they have the benefit of hindsight. They never have to do prediction. Even when they do it, it's a big joke. That's after the fact.
Tony Khan is going to be here in moments. Stugotz, help me. I want to figure out how to incorporate you, but I can't see you half the time. I don't know if you want to get in because the lighting's bad. I don't know if I'm going to you and I'm going to get a leaf blower. And I don't know what you know about this subject matter, the New York Times story. Do you have any opinions on this? Because this feels like a cannonball situation.
Well, I am surprised, Dan, that you don't think there's an amount of money that Maria Taylor would agree to stay at ESPN. I mean, she has, as Amin pointed out, all the leverage in this situation, and I absolutely think there is an amount of money that she'll probably get to stay at ESPN. I would hope that she gets because she's immensely talented.
The reporting, though, is at a time when Kenny Mayne is being asked to take a 61% pay cut, no one at the company is getting what's being reported right now. And she's turned that down. That's what's getting her painted, smeared. Why? I mean, I found a number of things here interesting. You guys tell me, among these things, what do you think is as interesting as this entire story that's feeding on the soap opera? What I just told you about the purposeful leaking of that to the New York Post days before a New York Times article that was going to make everyone look bad. The voice of a woman, a person at the network with the quotes saying flatly, your crappy long-time record on diversity, which, by the way, I know personally from the female side of it, those same people who are like generally white conservative male Trump voters is part of the reason I've had a hard time at ESPN. Those words delivered by that person. The 36th paragraph of the story in the New York Times telling, and also the one that was punished, low-level producer, who's black, punished with lesser jobs, 2 weeks without pay. 36th paragraph in that story as we ate up the 35 paragraphs before that. LeBron's advisor calling ESPN a snake pit. LeBron's looking around like, don't drag me into that too. I got out of the playoffs. How did I end up in this situation? First of all, LeBron's advisor, Stugotz. In today's show, you're hearing from a guy who's telling you, yeah, Durant, Kyrie Irving, they run that team. They're running that team in a way that you had no idea about. And he's telling you, and the basketball reporters are bought and paid for. They're not getting real access. They're getting whatever it is that the league and the partnership gives you on access. What you're getting from these reporters isn't real. What that Nets guy gave you is real. And he was telling you, these NBA reporters, they're propaganda machines. They're infomercials on behalf of the league. You're not actually getting the real. Her contract being up during the finals. Among those things, what do you think rises to the level of the 35 paragraphs that we're eating up because it's soap opera?
I thought one of the low-key shittiest parts was LeBron's advisor saying, between Me Too and Black Lives Matter, I'm exhausted. Come on, man, really?
Well, that is a damning laugh that Rachel Nichols gets. A whole lot of stuff gets assigned to the laugh that Rachel Nichols had after that sentence.
There were 35 paragraphs?
Tony Khan has joined us now, and this is a legitimate success story here. Last time you were here, you told us that AEW was going to be this. You told us that it was going to be this big thing, and I'm guessing it's probably exceeded your expectations. Welcome, by the way.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to see you.
Has it?
Yeah, it's exceeded expectations. It's one of the greatest things. It's the greatest thing ever, and I love what's happening with AEW. I'm so excited to be back here, and it's crazy because the last time I was in the studio with you, I actually went into your room at the Clevelander and negotiated a 4-year contract extension for AEW.
That happened while you were here.
That was right after the last time I was on your show. I went down to your room and did it, and we've never looked back. So it's pretty cool.
And how much have the expectations been exceeded? Because you've become a legitimate rival, at least in part, because you've got your fingerprints on the creative, and you have revealed to the wrestling audience that what they were consuming was a little out of date.
I'm so glad that we've been able to find an audience of wrestling fans that want to tune in every Wednesday and want to watch wrestling again every week. And I think there were a lot of disaffected fans out there, a lot of people that love wrestling and wanted to see something different. A lot of their favorite wrestlers weren't on television. And, we've definitely given people an alternative, and it's really been embraced. And I think now with fans coming back, we're actually in Miami. We're doing a show tomorrow at the Night Center. It's our first show on the road in over a year since before the outbreak, and I'm super excited about it.
Jericho has been a good investment, huh?
Yeah, Jericho's been a great investment. Absolutely. And he's been a good guest for you, too, I think.
But you knew that, right? That was the investment you were making, right? You were saying, I need a name, I need a personality. I don't care that he's over 50 years old.
He wasn't then. He wasn't over. He was under 50 when I signed Chris. And but Chris is one of the all-time great wrestlers, and Chris is still one of the great wrestlers today. And he's also one of the greatest minds in wrestling. And in addition to being in some of the most famous matches in AEW, like the Stadium Stampede or his title win over Hangman Page, retaining the title over Cody Rhodes, when he lost the title to Jon Moxley, and the Blood and Guts match. Chris has been in a lot of the biggest matches in AEW, but he's also, with his mind, helped me organize AEW. He's brought great names up. He's helped with story ideas. And so he's one of the most valuable people in wrestling. And I was really fortunate to be able to get linked up with Chris when I was starting this company.
I want to ask you some football questions because you're at the epicenter of the stuff going on with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have won more playoff games in the last quarter century than the Dallas Cowboys have. First things first, was Waddle as high on your draft board as was reported as Trevor Lawrence?
Well, it's in terms of grading, positional value is different from a raw grade. I think we basically gave both guys a perfect grade. So, in terms of being one of the highest graded players on our board, yeah, Jalen was very highly graded.
And what did you see there? What were you getting? I'm just speaking here on behalf of Dolphin fans. I'm sure that they would love to know what your analysis was of that.
One of the most athletic receivers you're going to see, his speed. You're getting a burner, an incredibly productive player on the national championship team, played against the most elite competition you can possibly play in college. So I'm very optimistic about what they're going to get from him, and he was definitely one of our highest graded players on the board.
Urban Meyer, I want to ask you some Urban Meyer questions, but first, how did you get Urban Meyer to do that skit on AEW, which was uproariously funny? What did that conversation go like? Does he have any interest in wrestling?
He has almost no interest in wrestling before I knew him, and now he has some interest in wrestling through our friendship. Charlie Strong is a big wrestling fan, a huge wrestling
So he wanted to be in the skit? He wanted to be tossing footballs to Urban Meyer? For those of you who do not know, a wrestling match spilled into Urban Meyer's office. The door swung open, and Charlie Strong was lobbing footballs to Urban Meyer, who was then pelting wrestlers with footballs. And I want you to take me through the skit.
Well, I'll tell you. So it was a great... to be honest, it was a fun day in the office. Urban and I were having a good time, and I had this thing in the back of my mind for a while. We're doing the Stadium Stampede match in the Jaguar Stadium. It's the first show with live fans back. We're back in Jacksonville. We hadn't gone on the road yet. Our first show on the road is tomorrow on TNT. But for this event, I wanted to do something special. The Stadium Stampede is associated with football, and I was in Urban's office, and he was getting ready to go home. It was the end of the Jags workday, and that night, I just kind of came to me. I thought, Urban, I have this idea, and it's a big favor. Do you have any time tomorrow? And he said, yeah. And I was like, well, I don't want to bug you, but if you have like an hour, I had this idea. And I told him what it was, that basically a wrestling match would spill into his office.
It's funny.
And
it was funny. It was such a payoff to see his face. It was very clever.
Well, it's like Urban works crazy hours, so it's not implausible that on a Sunday night at 11 p.m. Urban and Charlie could be working. So I thought it would be very cool. And Charlie is a huge fan, so I told Urban, Charlie's going to get a kick out of this too. So I think you guys would be the perfect ones to be in there. And he was great about it. Or I don't know if Urban had ever gone to a wrestling show as a fan. I know a couple times he'd gone with his players and gone socially. But as a fan, I don't know if he'd followed it that closely. And he came to our show, The Crossroads, in March, right before our Revolution pay-per-view in Jacksonville. And we had Shaq wrestling on the show. And what a great guy Shaq is. And he's been so great to AEW. And Shaq went through a table. Cody Rhodes gave him a crossbody, and they went through a table. And Urban went nuts, I heard. Like, all the coaches and players and stuff with Urban told me afterwards. They were like, he really got into it. He had a great time. So I knew he'd enjoyed it a little bit. And then we had Mike Tyson on the show, and Urban was like, I'd like to meet Mike Tyson. That'd be fun. So I brought him over, and kind of I used it in the show. They were having a conversation, so I started shooting them, and then I dropped it in Dynamite, because Mike Tyson was going to be on the show later. And I was like, well, Mike Tyson's standing by backstage with Urban Meyer. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that conversation. And then, so I figured I could take it one step further and actually get Urban involved in the wrestling. And he was great about it. It definitely helped the match, the presentation, and he had fun. He was great.
Stugotz, are your weekend observations ready? I think that leaf blower guy just walked past, and I want to do show here around Tony Khan.
That was him. Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask Tony, though, before we get to the weekend observations, the Oklahoma drill. He was just fined $200,000 for the Oklahoma drill.
I can't comment on it. I can't comment on why we were fine. We were fine, but I can't comment on why.
Why can't you comment? Understood, but why? It's just not. It's part of the rules, or okay.
But that being said, that's.
Have you considered a wrestling finisher called the Oklahoma drill?
Put it on the scroll.
Well
that
said,
said, yeah. Just put it on the ESPN scroll. Tony Khan.
I didn't.
You didn't say anything. You said no comment.
I said no comment. But the Oklahoma drill is a good idea for a wrestling move. That is a good idea.
A terrible idea in 2021 for a football team, but he can't comment. And now I've ruined it. Look at him. His body language has gone to shit. Let's do Stugotz's weekend observations.
I'm back.
It is time for Stugotz to share his game notes. No one in the media will tell you what happened better than my boy Stu.
This is weird, Dan. Now I got like a live audience here. Some people from the Golf Network, but we will move on here. Dan, he signed a 4-year contract. A year later, they decided 1 year was plenty. Not gonna lie, I was happy. Dan, after a 31-41 season, that was good enough or bad enough, depending on your vantage point, to bring him back to us. Make no mistake about it. Stan Van Gundy is back. SVG, death, taxes, and Josh Gordon applying for reinstatement.
It's so true.
I mean, seriously. Lefty, great mob name. Haven't confirmed yet, but hearing Kyrie and KD are jealous of Patrick Beverly for being suspended for the first game of next season. Bryson DeChambeau's caddy. I know we all have our principles. It had to be bad for you to leave in that spot. But you couldn't let it ride for another week? You were about to hang with Brady and Rodgers on the links. Played yourself. DeChambeau missed the cut at the Rocket Mortgage over the weekend. Classic look-ahead spot. Bucks. Suns. Who gets the elusive title? Chris Paul or Brooke Lopez? I thought Kyle Schwarber was doing all this for the Cubs. Huh?
Did you really?
Schwarbs.
He's been so good.
Unbelievable, man.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Batard Show. Did you think Kyle Schwarber was doing all this for the Cubs? And also, is Lefty a great mob name? Continue. I'm sorry.
Dan, you know what the K in Kucherov stands for?
Champion.
Can't believe they let this guy play. It also stands for con artist. Seriously. This guy, man. Looking forward to next season, when Braden Point and Victor Hedman have mysterious injuries keeping them out of the regular season. For some reason, I've spent the entire weekend talking about Chris Paul like the character Jack Palance played in Tango and Cash. CP3. It's not the hamstring, it's the hand. If it's not the hand, it's the hamstring. And I keep saying it as if I have two mice in my hands.
Stroking them.
Stroking. Did he have two mice? Jack Palance had two mice he was stroking as the bad guy in Tango and Cash?
Yes, one was Tango and one was Cash. They had two mice, yes.
I didn't remember that. I didn't remember that it was two of them. I'm sorry, Stu guys. The movie
it's
is
okay, and I have two mice,
old.
and one is for the hamstring and one is for the hand, just so we're all, keep it up at home.
Check out the Cinephobe episode on it.
Well done.
What is Cinephobe?
Oh, thank you. It's the podcast where Zach Harper and I watch movies that are poorly rated on Rotten Tomatoes and try to
ascertain
whether they are accurately poorly rated or perhaps, just perhaps, didn't get a fair shake. Cinephobe, produced by Anthony Mays, wherever you get podcasts.
I didn't know he was going to say ascertain.
Well done. A leaf blower just came by again.
How self-conscious are you right now? How self-conscious are you, Stugotz? How many golf people are around you?
There are, there's one, the leaf blowers around me. There's a guy, a couple of technical people who are setting something up here. And there is one, I believe, host here who is to my right, a reporter host. So I feel pretty good, Dan. I got to be honest with you. This is going well.
All right. It's just hard to do that voice level, that energy level. Do you have everything you need to continue right now?
I do, yes. Great. Just what we need. More Deer District. You know what the D in Deer District stands for, Dan?
I do not.
Delta variant.
Yeah, he was yelling, spreaders! He was yelling at the television the other day, spreaders!
That's where it lives. If it could talk and people asked, hey, Delta variant, where do you live? It would respond, the Deer District. I say all this while in Lake Tahoe, not wearing a mask, playing in a golf tournament with other people not wearing masks. Oh, well. Don't look now, Dano, but football is coming home. Leonardo, Spinazzola, the rare welcome to the party. That's sadly also a going away party. Jorginho. I hope that was right.
Jorginho?
That's what it says here.
I don't think that's what it says.
What's it say?
Jorginho.
Jorginho. Hipster pick for the Balloon d'Or.
The balloon.
D'Or.
Yeah. I know you're proud of yourself for getting
Ballon d'Or.
D'Or.
Whatever. Guts and Guile. What happened there?
Chris Whittingham is a fancy lad.
Guts and Guile. Oh, jeez. That's Caesar Azpilicueta in a nutshell. Guts and Guile.
Nailed it.
For old Caesar. Yeah, I got it. You know what the B in Budenholzer stands for?
Oh, for the love of God.
Beer belly. I mean, Jesus, Mike, mixing a salad.
Oh, damn.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Should Budenholzer spell his last name with two B's at the start for beer belly?
A little harsh.
By now, Dan, we almost know what the V in Verstappen stands for.
Vroom, vroom.
Yay! You're on your game today. That's the boy. Tampa Bay family and fans were not allowed into Canada to see the Lightning try and win the Cup. Not because of COVID, Dan. Because they're from Tampa. You know who else shouldn't be allowed to travel to Canada? Kucherov.
That's true.
I'll tell you one thing. The K in Kucherov will never stand for Canada. What a terrible weekend for ESPN. I mean, one of the worst PR moments in the network's long, storied history. How do you have technical issues when a man is on pace to eat 79 hot dogs? Technical issues during Joey Chestnut once again breaking his own world record is the equivalent of having technical issues when Michael Jordan hit the game-winning jumper over Byron Russell after pushing off. Joey Jaws, MJ. Lucas said he'd rather have an Olympic gold medal than an NBA title. Know what the L in Lucas stands for?
Liar.
Liar. Dan, you know what the C in California stands for?
No.
Cannabis.
What does that have to do with anything?
I'm just here in California, Dan. What in Rome, you know? I mean, I can tell you. Great examples in law. What happened, Mike?
We changed that joke to dispensaries, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't know how to read the word dispensaries.
I didn't know what that word meant. I thought it was a mistake on your end, to be honest with you. Dispensary.
Yeah, you know what that word means.
I do, yeah. Gonna stop at one in a couple of minutes. Great examples in long-form storytelling.
It's 8 a.m. where you are.
What do you mean it's 8 a.m., so?
Beginning to make more sense. Beginning to make more sense when you got up to move your car.
Do we have drug testing here at Metal Arc Media for on air? I don't think this is something that was allowed at Disney.
Legal. Great examples in long-form storytelling. Walter White's transformation into Heisenberg, Who Shot JR, and Hangman Page's 2-year struggle with confidence and alcohol that hopefully culminates in an inevitable clash against Kenny Omega for the AEW title at the All Out pay-per-view. Hey, you're welcome, Tony. How about that?
AEW officially returns to the road. Special Road Rager edition of AEW Dynamite tomorrow night. They'll be at the James L. Knight Center in Miami. Show starts at 7 p.m. Tickets available, AEWTix.com and Ticketmaster.
Good job out of
Unbelievable. Thank you, guys. That was unbelievable.
Oh, unbelievable.
Well, Dan,
you. Hangman Page. I'm so in on this saga. And then you got the Dark Order in there. Oh, it's incredible.
It's going to be a great month. July is going to be a great month for AEW.
Dan?
Still here.
The final tallies are in. With Lloyd Pierce, the Hawks were 14-20. And without him, they were 27-11, made an unlikely run to the Eastern Conference Finals, and fell just 2 games short of playing for the NBA championship. If the people who run the match were smart, they would have had Mickelson and Brady versus DeChambeau and Jordan Love. That should have been Rodgers. Hell's the matter with them?
It is Rodgers.
Speaking of hell. Or Bryles.
What just happened at the
Speaking of
end there?
dispensaries.
Dispensaries. Speaking of dispensaries.
I started thinking of dispensaries and cannabis. I'm not going to lie. The Kush. I mean, I gotta tell you, it's so good. Dan, those were the weekend observations.
Are you at Pebble Beach? Where is
Lake Tahoe.
Lake Tahoe. Okay. It's celebrity.
Lake Tahoe.
You're playing the celebrity deal.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mike, I played a couple of holes with Robbie Gold yesterday.
Wow. The kicker? That's a hell of a name drop there.
Chris, what was funny was I was backing up on a par 3 and the cart, because my cart just stops automatically. So I was backing up, and Chris, you know this, when you back up on the cart, you don't hit the brake, the beep starts going off. And it started going off right during Robbie Gold's swing. Now he drilled it, and I said, Robbie, I am so sorry, man. I'm so sorry. And he said, hey, not a big deal. I got 70,000 fans screaming at me when I kick a field goal. Now, I didn't know it was Robbie Gold until he dropped that on me, okay? I knew it was Ray Allen. I didn't know it was Robbie Gold, because Robbie Gold's tinier than I am.
This goes back to my point that golf isn't a sport. Any sport where they ask you, please be quiet, I need to concentrate. That's not a sport, man. That's a hobby. See, Robbie Gold told you, in real sports, people actively want you to fail, and they're letting you know 70,000 people at a time. And you know what we do? We block it out and knock those kicks in anyway. But golfers, no, he was jingling his keys. I heard a beeping noise over there. Oh, my God, you sneezed at the wrong time. What is that about?
In tennis is clearly a sport. I think there's some respect and etiquette in the game of tennis.
And Robbie Gold is also 6 feet tall, which towers over you, Stugotz. So you might have confused him with Paul Ettinger.
Mike, they list him as 6 feet. I promise you, he is not an inch over 5'9". I promise you.
I don't think Robbie Gold is 6 feet.
There's a lot about that story that didn't add up. You added that Ray Allen after you got the initial laugh of Robbie Gold. Then you pushed it a little bit further with Ray Allen. Then you went up to Robbie Gold and you said, I'm sorry, Robbie. And then he told you the kicking thing. And then you realized who he was because you didn't know who he was before he told you that, even though you called him Robbie.
You're right.
There's a lot there.
You're right. Here's the story. I played 9 holes without those guys. I was paired up with a complete stranger from Ireland, okay? And so then we get to the 10th hole.
That's the detail, though, that you throw in the lies is the Ireland thing.
Then we get to the 10th hole, and everything's backed up because Ray has decided he wants. And now I'm talking to Ray throughout the 9 because the holes are backed up. It's very slow. It's cart path only. And I'm talking to Ray. I have no idea who Ray is with. In fact, the Irishman I was playing with asked me, who were the other 2 guys in that group? And I say, I have no idea. I only know that's Ray Allen. And so I'm talking to Ray. I told him Dan said hello, blah, 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 the whole deal, small talk and all that stuff.
Billy, I love the look on your face because
me leaving the game early when he hit the big shot.
His tells liars go into a lot of details, and the fingers that he's waving at you. We know that now there's a lot of smoke here, a lot of mirrors, and he might not even be in Tahoe.
I think he's at his house. That's what I think is happening.
Parkland Golf and Country Club, I am. Yep, that's where I am.
What are you going to get for us this week from Tahoe? What are you promising the audience? Let's lay it out right now.
Dan, he's getting stoned. That's what he's getting.
Yeah, Dan, I am going to get you the best cannabis you've ever had, my friend.
Yeah. I don't think you can bring that across state lines.
No. Oh, that's right. It's unfortunate. Yeah. Okay.
It's all you know, Mikey.
Mike, how are you enjoying the fact that he's going in and out in lighting from government informant to radio talk show host, all the while totally baked?
Not at all, Dan, to answer your question.
Did anyone know he was coming on with us today?
Who, Stugotz?
Yes.
Yeah, I had a feeling he'd be a part of the show.
We didn't know he was going to be in Tahoe.
No,
we found out last night that he was going to be in Tahoe, and so I don't know what I'm looking forward to. Whatever it is you guys are going to end up producing, but the rest of the crew, Tony's going out there, and Chris Cody and Greg Cody, but none of them have left. You're in Tahoe with your family. I wanted to get a head start on the festivities out here, so I left a little bit early. I think I sent you a text perhaps over the weekend. Maybe you got it, maybe you didn't. I mean, it's not a big deal. But I'm here at Tahoe, Dan, and listen, here is the best part about it. I have Kelsey and Mahomes playing in the group right behind me on Thursday, and I have Larry Fitzgerald playing right in front of me, and that's where you want Larry Fitzgerald, playing right in front of you, if you know what I mean, Dan. Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Have you seen, Tony, I think you can comment on this without tampering. Larry Fitzgerald has a perfect ass.
Yeah, the lower bodies.
I've most of my conversations with Larry Fitzgerald have been face to face. So I've
but
never known.
Stugotz is here to tell you that it's better from the back.
What a great guy, though.
And what a great ass.
I can't comment. Again.
Why can't you comment?
What about on the
that?
Jags? Best ass on the Jags.
What's the best ass on the Jags?
Shad Khan. The man is a physical marvel. 70 years old. He's in amazing shape.
Larry Fitzgerald is still active. He's an active Arizona Cardinal, so I believe a front office executive talking about Larry Fitzgerald's rear end is indeed tampering.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo, please, at Batard Show. Are you ever talking about the perfection of your father's ass?
The guy's in great shape.
Publicly.
The guy's in great shape.
We are back on YouTube Live. Welcome, everybody. Hello.
All right. That's probably something we should have informed
We
Tony
just
Khan
did,
of.
No, they missed that. But that's a podcast exclusive.
Julio Jones, a real Julio Jones situation. I want to get into some of what's happening in college football because it's such a wonderful apocalypse. Sonny Vaccaro, who some of you might associate with sort of changing the sneaker game, says that the O'Bannon thing that he got with likeness, this is the quote, best thing I've done in my life, and I signed Michael Jordan.
Yes, he did.
He has just upended college football. The O'Bannon, the likeness settlement is going to mean what? How are you watching this, Tony, from professional football, everything that's happening in college football, where you're free minor league right now, everything is being exposed. You guys have run two cartels, college football and pro football, working together to keep your pro football minor league free.
Objection leading the witness?
Whoa. What is this?
Two giant cartels running the injustice so that the NFL's minor leagues can be free, and now all of a sudden the shamateurism is over, right? Everyone can see that money's going to end up getting thrown around all over the place publicly. Does that change how you guys do business in any way?
No, I think it's great. I mean, the players come into the NFL now, hopefully with, better means, better experience in marketing themselves. And I don't want players coming to the NFL where their first big paycheck is in the NFL. Like, that's, if people are already making money before they come in the NFL, that's great. And frankly, not every player is going to make it in the NFL. So because there's only, 90 spots on a roster in camp, and then those get cut down, and we end up trimming the roster down to 53, and then we go to the practice squad, there aren't that many people making money in the NFL from playing football. But I think if more people can make money from football, that's a good thing. It's good for the game, and it's great for the players. So as an NFL executive, an NFL owner, and somebody who loves football, I think it's awesome.
Trevor Lawrence, is it that obvious to you as you're watching someone at that position? You're like, oh my God, hope, we've got hope. Look at that smile on his face.
It's been Trevor's incredible, and I think every football fan in the country pretty much knew Trevor was going to help some franchise. I'm very thankful the franchise he's going to help is the Jaguars. That we didn't know going into the season, but I think he was definitely the most coveted player in the draft, if I would imagine, for all 32 teams. And I have to think that he's going to help us. It's definitely hope for us for the future. And he had a great camp. I mean, he came in the voluntary workouts. He came in through the OTAs. He was tremendous. And our last practice before we broke, he actually probably had his best practice of the summer. And now we're going to be back, later this month for camp. It is hope, and it's a really exciting time for the Jags. In 10 years with a team, I've never felt this good.
Tony, is there ever a moment in the draft process where you're like, maybe we should think about somebody else at number one, or was it him all along from beginning to end?
We had to look at everybody. And that was one of the things with Trent Urban that we were dead serious about. It's like, yes, we all know Trevor Lawrence is amazing. We've all watched him, and we all know that there's a good chance that's who we're going to pick. But we have to go into it looking at every player, whether it was Justin Fields or Zach or every other player in the draft, and look at them and say, and like we talked about Waddle, and evaluate every player at every position and say who the best player is. Now, a quarterback we thought was really going to help us, and Trevor was the player we ended up grading the best on merit, but his reputation preceded him.
Did you have any other perfect scores other than Waddle and Trevor Lawrence?
I think those were two of the highest graded players on the board. I believe those were the two highest graded players on the board. Yeah.
AEW officially returns.
I think, you know what? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Especially there.
Pitts.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes. AEW officially returns to the road with a special Road Rager edition of AEW Dynamite. That's tomorrow night, James L. Knight Center in Miami. Show starts at 7 p.m. If you want tickets, they're available at AEWTix.com and Ticketmaster. Mike Ryan wants to ask you about another sport that you're involved in, but last question on this front. What can you tell us that people don't know about how the Urban Meyer thing came together?
You just did this great AEW plug, and now we're back to football. You're all over the place. And
wait till you see him ask you about a sport that's not even played in this
now I'm
country.
going to have to pivot back to like a barbed wire death match or something
well,
like that.
Well, that's great. That's great. So, okay, first, thank you guys for the AEW plugs. We're here tomorrow in Miami. I'm very excited about it. And then, Dan, I was so grateful for the plug, and then you shook me back with a football question. So what was your football question?
Urban Meyer, how did that come together?
My father and Urban built a great relationship, and my dad really liked Urban. And then the team obviously was not doing well, and we weren't doing well enough. And he felt like he wanted to make a change, and he had built this great relationship with Urban. I had never met Urban in my life, but he's one of the winningest college football coaches ever. And my dad's instincts are great. He's a great businessman and a great leader. So I wanted to see what he felt so strongly about. And then we spent time with Urban, and I bought into it immediately. And the first time I met Urban, I didn't understand it. Exactly why I liked this guy so much. I mean, I knew his accomplishments, his record. There's a million reasons to feel good about him. But there was something I couldn't put my finger on. And then the second time I met him, he explained it to me. And then my dad ended up hiring him shortly after. But
who explained it to you, Urban or your dad?
Urban explained to me what his philosophies on things, and I can explain it to you. And it kind of, to be honest, it didn't just kind of, it really changed my life. Urban's philosophies on players and coaches. With coaches, he does not want to hear from a coach why a player is not doing well, that a player isn't good enough, because he feels it is their responsibility as coaches to put everything into the player and give the player the best chance to succeed. And he doesn't want to hear a lot of excuses about this guy's not good enough. This guy and
changed your life how?
In terms of things I've believed in, like in terms of like positivity and in terms of being a good leader, I think Urban is a great leader. And I think like when you see it, he leads by example. He comes into the building, he works really hard, and he expects everybody to work really hard. But I don't know how he does it, but he's completely changed the culture of the Jaguars in this short time he's been there. Every player showed up to voluntary workouts. We've never had 100% attendance at voluntary workouts. Players showed up in better shape. Guys have put on, the quote-unquote 10 pounds of muscle. That is a legit thing. There are guys who put on the 10 pounds of muscle and look like completely different guys. I don't know why they weren't doing it before, but they are doing it now.
It's those Oklahoma drills that you can't talk about.
I have no comment on that. But I will say that Urban has completely changed the culture of the Jaguars, and he's changed my life, and he's created a culture of accountability among every person there, and he doesn't want to hear bitching and complaining. And he says, everybody put your head down, work hard, and if we all pull in the same direction, we're going to do this. And people believe him, and now everybody really is working harder. Like, you can see it. So it's actionable, and it has changed the team, and it's changed my life.
You've done a spectacular job, navigating all these different properties that you're a part of amidst a pandemic. And it's hard in soccer, and it's hard in NFL football, but you at least are going through it with other contemporaries, other owners, and you're figuring out a plan together. With wrestling, kind of doing it on your own. Now, this is not to throw dirt on the name of other companies, but I feel like AEW, the product stands for themselves in terms of storytelling during the pandemic. They were the most entertaining for me. So naturally, after setting you up and talking you up, I'm going to talk about the one memorable thing that went viral that didn't necessarily pan out. Barbed wire deathmatch. Our show even talked about this. Hours of planning and production and pyro expertise probably go into this live pay-per-view extravaganza where a ring is basically sort of meant to look like it explodes. Doesn't go well.
I'll never let the non-wrestling people. I was trying to be too safe, and I let the professionals handle the stuff. And they're guys who don't understand wrestling. They're professional pyrotechnic guys. They totally. Can I say?
Let it fly. Let it fly.
On the show? They totally shit the bed, these guys. And I ended up not paying them. And so it was like $100,000 that they ended up refunding to me for all the expense of the match. So I didn't end up paying for the barbed wire death match. And, which I shouldn't have, because these guys screwed up royally. We put together something great. Kenny and John worked their asses off. And all they had to do was set off the final explosion. And again, this is because we used professional pyrotechnic people that were supposed to know. And the next time we do this, and I will do it again because the match drew, everything John and Kenny did up to that point was outstanding. It wasn't their fault. The thing didn't go off. And so anyway, long story short, that was a long time ago, and we've bounced back since then. But what I'm really proud of is basically since that, that was 3 months ago. Everything has been pretty perfect since then, I have to say. Things couldn't have really gone much better. And what I was really grateful for is the next pay-per-view event was up and did a big number up from last year, Double or Nothing, and was probably up there with the best shows we've ever done. And it was really important to me to come back and give the fans a pay-per-view that was start to finish great, because, where you get in trouble in the wrestling business is not if you make one mistake. It's if you make a consistent pattern of making these mistakes. If you make a habit of it, if you do a string of bad shows, that's where you're going to screw yourself in wrestling.
I hate that you can talk that freely around wrestling and you have to be so careful around football. It makes me want to punch you in the larynx.
Well, I'm the commissioner of my own league. I don't answer to anybody.
I understand why that happened. Right. Put it on the poll, Guillermo, by the way, at Batard Show. Has a better sentence ever been uttered on this show than, quote, I didn't end up paying for the barbed wire death match, end quote.
I like the idea is that never again with professionals. Give me a carny with 7 fingers. Give me Danny McBride from Tropic Thunder.
Danny McBride.
You do. You need somebody who's a little more reckless. Get out of here, pyrotechnic.
Somebody that understands wrestling and knows when that was not good on their part. I would never do that again.
I've got one last thing, because you're returning to the road with the Road Rager at James L. Knight Center. Tickets available. Dan, you want to do that plug one last time?
AEW officially returns to the road with, as Mike mentioned, the special Road Rager edition of AEW Dynamite. Tomorrow night, James L. Knight Center. That's in Miami. The show starts at 7 p.m. Tickets are available. Ticketmaster and AEWTix.com.
I went to one of the shows in the bubble, and I was talking to some of the performers backstage, and they were mentioning how difficult of an industry it is when there are no fans. And the first couple of shows that you did on television had no fans. So they have this term in the industry, over. What's over with the audience? And they're doing months worth of shows without really knowing, outside of social media and how the performers themselves feel, about what's actually working on TV. How did you gauge that?
It was difficult, but we had to, exactly like you said, Mike, you had to use social media and what the fans were saying online, which is important, but really it's only one of the things you normally look at, because you'd also be weighing the reaction to the live fans, which is some of the most important feedback you get, is how the fans at the show react. When there are no live fans, you have to look to the online audience. What I did to kind of keep the shows entertaining and to keep the wrestlers sane and to keep things going is, and Mike knows this very well, I put the wrestlers themselves in the bubble out at ringside, when the people who weren't in the matches, as the audience. And I thought it gave us an advantage over our competitor because they were doing it at first in a completely empty building with no reaction. At least we had the reaction of the wrestlers, who, again, they're wrestling people. They know when to react. And is it 100% genuine compared to having a pure paid audience feedback? The most hardcore fans you can get are awesome audience. No, it's not as good as that. So what I did a few months later, when drive-in movies and stuff started to open back up, is we have an outdoor amphitheater. It holds 5,000 people. So we opened it back up at first at 20%, and we started putting pods in, like almost like a drive-in movie. So you could come, you bring your family, and last summer people would start to go to the wrestling shows again, and we were the first ones to start selling tickets. We've been doing it now for about a year ago, and we've did all the shows with no transmissions. We've had no known code transmissions. And we brought wrestling back, sold tens of thousands of tickets, at first in 20%, then 25% pods. And we did this with the Jags, too. And then, AEW actually started selling tickets a few weeks before NFL season came back. Week 1 of the NFL season, the Jags and the Chiefs were the only teams with fans.
You haven't had a greater technical challenge, right, across sports than any of that, have you? Has there been any one thing that has posed a larger technical challenge?
No, it's definitely the greatest in my lifetime. It's been the greatest logistical challenge in sports history. There was a long period of time where I had a very small percentage of the crew because it was only people that could drive down to Jacksonville. So we did these early shows with basically a local crew of East Coast people. And I'm really proud of those shows. I'm glad we don't have to ever do it again, hopefully. But, we started selling tickets to the fans. We started to bring the audience back. And, again, I think it's given us an advantage over our competitor. And, they brought in virtual fans, a big screen of people. If in a 5,000-seat building, when you go to 25%, you got 1,250. It's a good crowd. And it gave us an advantage over our competitor, I thought.
This is the one you enjoy the most, right? You have to. If I force you to pick one, this is the one. It's not football. It's not soccer. It's this. It's you getting your hands dirty with the scripts. No,
it's not a fair question. But here's why. It's not just unfair because it's like asking which of your kids you love the most, and one of them is different than the others. It's just different. I love them all in a different way. I love the competition of football, and it's totally different. English football is different from the NFL. And they're both so different.
But this brings out the child in you. Maybe the others do too.
It does. There's nothing like winning. And you're competing with yourself, and we're all aligned, and we're all on the same page here, and it's a little bit different. It's funny.
You say there's nothing like winning, but I'm talking about winning as the upstart against the established juggernaut and exceeding your expectations. I'm talking about that kind of winning, that your business is winning because you made a big bet on yourself.
It's the best, and it's hard to describe. The greatest feelings I've had are when we've done a great show like this Double or Nothing. Our last show, Double or Nothing, recently was a first show in wrestling with 100% fan attendance in Jacksonville. That was one of the great moments I've had. For Fulham to be promoted at Wembley Stadium in 2018, a packed house of 80,000 with 40,000 fans from Fulham there, and beat Aston Villa, that was one of the greatest moments of my life. Then during the pandemic, very strange, we won the playoff again, but this time instead of 80,000 fans, there were 0 fans there. Instead of being able to go hug the players and go celebrate with the trophy and take the players out to celebrate, the players FaceTime me with the trophy. And it was very different, and it was a sign of the times. In fact, I think there was a story in the Sunday Times in England, and I think that was the quote they used. I said it was a sign of the times that, we're celebrating over FaceTime with the trophy. And those are great moments in my life, too. And then for the Jaguars to win in Pittsburgh, win a playoff game, and we won in Pittsburgh twice in the same season. I think Jaguars are still the only franchise ever to do that, win 2 games in Pittsburgh in the same season. And that was a great feeling, too. So it's hard to compare them. I love them all.
Again, one last time, it's here in Miami. AEW returns to the road. Road Rager, James L. Knight Center. Show starts at 10 p.m. tomorrow night. If you want tickets, Ticketmaster and AEWTix.com. Thank you for spending time around the show, Tony. We appreciate it.
Thank you. And if you're not in Miami, the show's on TNT, the Road Rager, and I would love it if people would watch it live on TNT. Thank you for having me back. I really missed you.
What are you smiling about?
Because he's right, man. You kind of just ignored the whole "it's going to be on TNT" thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, but the ratings kind of trump the actual in-person attendance.
I mean, it's like they're both very important. I think we're very Miami focused on this show, and there's a lot of people in Miami listening to the show, so I think it's great to try and move some tickets. But it is on TNT, so for most of you who are listening to this and are not in Miami, I would love it if you would watch it live on TNT tomorrow night and every Wednesday from 8 to 10 Eastern or 7 to 9 in the Central Time Zone.
That's how you plug. You tell the people where they can find it. Like, for instance, if they're looking for a podcast where people,
ascertaining
they watch
and,
movies and they're poorly rated on Rotten Tomatoes and try to ascertain whether they're accurately poorly rated.
Just
or
shut
maybe
the
they get a
lights
fair
off.
share. I'm just saying, you would go and you look for Cinephobe wherever you get podcasts. Produced by Anthony Mays. Cinephobe. This month is John Travolta month.
We shut down the stream.
Okay.
Jerk.
Here's a dumb thing. I didn't know Lake Tahoe was right next to California.
You can actually stand on both states at the same time.
I have a question for Chris Cody. You tweeted like, we're golfing, back in Cali.
I looked. We're golfing back in Cali.
It's not in Cali. I mean,
Cali.
It says Tahoe, California.
Technically, it's actually in Nevada, Chris.
I thought it was in Nevada. I didn't know how close it was to California. Because when Stugotz is like, I'm in California, I'm like, do you know where you are?
The hotel.
Who didn't know?
The hotel and the golf course are in Nevada, but down the street, literally like a block away, is California.
Oh, we'll be in Cali.
Yeah.
So then we're golfing in Nevada.
Correct.
Nevada.
Correct.
We're golfing in Nevada.
Didn't flow as good.
No.
I don't think so.
Chris, you taking your clubs? Or are you going to use clubs there? Or what do you do?
I'm bringing my clubs, yeah.
You got to check that in, right?
I feel like you think you're going to crush it. Do you think you're going to crush it?
No, I'm nervous about.
Yeah, I think he hopes. He's like desperately hoping that he will crush it.
I played,
but
really,
I've sensed nerves on him for weeks.
No, I am nervous about that part of just being like having a gallery.
Why?
Like I don't know that setup yet. I don't know how that's going to be. Whether it's
but no one's going to be watching you, so it doesn't really matter.
Right?
Yeah, but they'll be watching.
That's not true.
Yeah. No, he's right.
There could be fans of the show that realize we're talking about it today. It's been a theme on the show.
If people are watching me, it's because they're waiting for Mahomes and Kelsey to come up on like. Luckily, they're not actually right behind us like I thought they were originally.
I think you're underestimating the number of fans of the show that could
maybe.
Potentially be there. It's like, oh, Stugotz is golfing with Philip Bailey of Earth, Wind, and Fire and, and Marty Fish.
Yeah,
I want to be near this.
I'm nervous. I would if you made me say yes or no, I think I am going to be nervous when I step.
When's the last time you were this nervous? Because you're always very confident when it comes to like these athletic pursuits.
For a sporting event, yeah, I don't get nervous. I mean, I'm the kind of guy that for like a men's beer league championship game, like if you get the right nerves going, like just a little like this is a big game. Sometimes you don't play as well though. Sometimes you don't play as well when that happens.
Chris, have you found that your confidence has waned since falling down on Ocean Drive?
White ass crown.
I did actually yesterday. I found myself like running for like a split second, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I felt that little feeling,
It's in the back of your head
of just like, "Are my legs going to give out again?" Like,
why did you run for a split second yesterday?
I was playing with my daughter outside, and like I wasn't even sprinting. It was just I found myself in a little bit of a run, and I was like, I felt a little wobbly, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm shook."
We went to the zoo this weekend, and we rented out those cycles.
The worst.
Dangerous
Never
game.
do that.
You were
The quad bike.
You were cycling all by yourself.
Yeah.
No, Anit was with me, but still, that was not fun.
So you would not recommend that because I've always thought those look good.
No,
you see the people with like they have like their strollers on like the roof of it.
Yeah, that was not great. You added weight
From
of all
personal
three of us.
experience, it always seems fun. And then at the end, you're the last person pedaling, and you're pedaling the weight of 5 or 6 people who no longer think that it's fun. And then you're like, how did I get stuck in this position?
Anit's sister was there as well, and I'm like, hey, you pedaling? What's going on here? I'm like looking at her legs like, you're not pedaling like at all. What's going on here?
That's why those like bike bar things never seemed appealing to me. Like I know that that's like a popular thing, but it seems like it's basically one of those, but you're adding drinking to the equation. And it's like this big giant thing. And I'm like, I've never been invited on one. So we could just start right there. But should I ever be invited on one? It seems like something that I wouldn't be like too interested in going on because I feel like I'd be like the one person pedaling.
Should we do it as a show, Billy? Do you want to rent one of those and
No, but I feel like it's all a scam. It's like for people who want to think like, oh, I'll burn the calories that I'm consuming when I drink. But really, it's not. Like, you're just going to go and pay more for drinks than you would if you had just gone to a bar or bought yourself a bottle.
That's fair. For me, like, it's not about the burning calories thing. It's the socials of getting to, like, go down a crowded street. Like, hey, look at us. Like, it's a look at me thing.
Look at us.
Look at us. We're all drinking. Look at us.
Nah.
You can't do that sitting down? Like,
no.
But you don't strike me as a look at me guy. Are you a look at me guy? Like, you want people to be, like, watching you do these things?
Me?
Yeah.
No. This is, like, the antithesis of my being. But I don't know. I feel like that I'm trying to explain the appeal. But I feel like just as a show, like, we've talked about this, we should...
Shouldn't we be look at me people? I mean, like, that's our profession. Our profession is we make money by people looking at us. So shouldn't we be more look at me?
Yeah, it's generally considered a negative trait, but perhaps for our profession, we should look at it more favorably.
So I've got a question. If you are on a bike and you are drinking, you are possibly getting a DUI if you're stopped by a cop. But if you get multiple people drinking together on one bike, it's not. Why is that?
There's a guy who steers. The guy who owns the thing is steering it. All we're doing, we're the horsepower. We're not actually dictating where the bike goes.
Gotcha. Right. Okay. Never been on one. I don't know.
Now you know. The more you know.
That guy's got a rough gig, right?
Yeah.
The steerer of the drunkards. Yeah. That's a rough time. That's not fun. The first time was probably like, cool, I get to be the drunk people. But then the 15th time that everyone stops pedaling, it's got to be annoying.
Not even the 15th time. It's just like 2 hours later.
Yeah. There's secret motors on those things, right? So, like, if you get, like, the group that, like, has had way too much to drink, you're like, all right, I'm going to turn the key on. We're going to stop pretending that this isn't a real car.
Billy,
no one's peddling anything.
There's got to be a secret motor and a secret brake. Because, how do you stop, 15 people from pedaling when there's a baby in the intersection or something like that? No, it's probably all a scam to make people feel better about themselves.
How do you guys feel about the bikes that have the brakes where you pedal backwards and that's how you stop?
I feel that could be a very dangerous thing.
Really?
It's a dangerous game when you go from the pedal backwards bikes to the
hand brakes. Yeah.
That happens to me a lot because, like a lot of bike rentals in certain places are only pedal backwards.
Really? They don't have hand brakes?
Yeah, and like certain places where it's easier to maintain them because like the handbrakes, if you go somewhere where there's like a beach or like salt water, the handbrakes can get rusty and they're harder to maintain. The pedal backwards is a much easier maintenance situation.
No, I'd be dead then. Really? I'm like, there are no brakes, and I just
handbrakes are a dangerous game because I always mix up the back and the front, and if you're going fast enough and you hit that front brake, you're flipping over the front of that bike. That has happened to me before.
You don't I just break everything. I don't know why it matters with the front or back. Just break everything and put my foot on the ground like Fred Flintstone.
The pedaling backwards on a handbrake bike is underrated, where you're kind of just picking up speed and you're like, well, I don't want to keep pedaling. Let me just do the back pedal. Stretch out my legs a little bit.
Great sound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is a good sound.
Yeah.
It's
like Wheel of Fortune.
That's the sound.
You should put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Le Batard Show. Handbrakes, dangerous game? Yes or no?
He's typing it out right now.
When's the last time you went on a nice bike ride? A leisurely bike ride?
Far too long.
Yeah, it's been way too long.
No, I do it very often, actually. I've got a big beach cruiser bike, and it's a good way to get around. You guys are enjoying that visual, aren't you?
That seems like it would be heavy, though, right? Like the ones with the big tires seem like it'd be a lot of work.
Just Dan on the bike.
Billy, I was just imagining the bike has like car tires on it, right?
Yes,
big,
it does.
They're big ass tires. They're
huge.
You can ride it on the sand, and it isn't a lot of work. It's a big bike that is remarkably easy to ride. It is a leisurely ride. I want to paint the picture of having a tiny basket on it that's made of wicker and a tiny horn or a bell of some sort, but it's a giant horn that I lean on very aggressively in order to get people out of the boardwalk path.
I'm picturing a huge bike with a huge basket with your huge pit bull sitting in the front and you just cruising down the beach.
I just pictured Dan on the opposite, a very tiny bike.
On a unicorn, a unicycle.
Or not a unicycle, but those little bikes like...
What about one really big tire? The one with the one really
the
big
big wheel?
Yeah.
Or are you talking about the penny farthing?
The penny farthing.
Yeah, the old school,
penny
the old
farthing.
fashioned one.
The Chris Whittingham.
Imagine me on a unicycle. Just on the beach, you're just walking around, and I just glide past you on a bike with no handlebars and a single tire.
Just have the arms extended like that.
I had Dan drinking while he's doing that. Just like taking a vigorous swig, and he's just cycling down Ocean Drive. Or maybe it's Dan juggling, right? With the
now
the
you have me
pins.
as a circus performer of some sort. Just amazing at feats on
because unicycling wasn't hard enough. Now you're juggling on top of that.
I was thinking about over the weekend. Whatever happened to the first drive-through window at fast food restaurants?
What do you mean? What
Almost
happened
extinct.
When these things were created,
expanded.
when these buildings were created in fast food restaurants back in the day, they were like, here's the pay window,
Right.
here's the second window. Now, more times than none, it's go straight to the second window. And obviously what happened is they realized is that second person can do both jobs. It's just interesting that was a thing and now it's not anymore.
Those pay windows, it's just like next window. I've never.
It's so sad. You drive by, it's like meet you at the second window. You drive by, it's like no one's ever there.
Never paid anyone
What a
at the
sad
pay
window.
It's a good point.
Just things you know. Sometimes you're in life, you're just like, what happened there?
Do you think with mobile ordering that they're going to do away with the windows now?
Wow.
It better not.
Well, no, I got to get my food though.
They got to carry it out.
No, I don't like them carrying it out.
Curbside, you don't like
There
that?
is nothing more annoying, by the way, when they tell you you've ordered and it's pull off to the side. We'll give you your food.
You know what they're doing there? That's
what?
them. Like, there's like a timing mechanism,
yeah.
and they want to have a good report. So it's like we got to just move forward. You go over there, and then it'll be as if you left and this order was complete, but it wasn't complete.
You feel so naked because you're sat in the parking lot waiting for your fast food to come. It's like, does anyone remember that I'm owed food?
Right.
And like 10 minutes go by, and then you walk inside the restaurant. It's like, well, if I was going to order inside the restaurant, I would have ordered inside the restaurant.
That's
terrible.
Bad. That's bad. I've never had to go inside. Like usually they bring it out.
The other thing about that is doing that mobile ordering while it's raining. Having somebody come out curbside to give you your food while it's raining.
Have you guys seen that Uber has changed? So it like if it's raining, it's like this person is dodging raindrops to get you your food. It literally says that on the Uber Eats thing. It's like, you're just
Relax.
Relax
Uber Eats.
Well, with Uber Eats, you can tip them. So if it is raining, you better give them a
That's
good
a whole
tip.
nother conversation. This whole Uber thing started with, here's the best part about it is you don't have to tip. And somewhere along the lines, we've shifted to you're supposed to tip. I don't know when that happened.
Worse than that, when you do Uber Eats and they ask you to tip before the food's even been delivered. No, sir.
You can go back and edit
there in
that,
the
by the
checkout.
way. You can go back and edit that. Those tips are not like set in stone until the order is complete.
Some people do that in a way that's nefarious, where they give a giant tip and then they rescind it in order to just get their food faster.
Sounds like Chris Cody does that.
Stugotz.
What an asshole move.
Have you guys ever driven past the first window assuming there's not going to be anyone there? You get to the second window and then they're like, you didn't pay. What are you doing here? And it's like, well, I've been conditioned now to skip that first window. I'm going to window 2. Also, I had a thing a couple weeks ago where I went to a restaurant. I'm not going to say which one. It was a fast food restaurant, and we ordered chicken McNuggets, right? And we were waiting for the chicken McNuggets at the second window. We had already paid for the chicken McNuggets at the first window, and they said, please pull forward. So we pulled forward, and we were there for a good 10 minutes waiting for the chicken McNuggets, and they never came. So then the lane cleared up behind us, and we put that thing in reverse, and we went right back to the window. We're like, hey, where are these chicken McNuggets at? And they're like, do you have the receipt? And it's like, you told me to park here. Do I have the receipt? And then we went looking for the receipt, and they just, I guess, forgot about the chicken McNuggets, and they had to make it again. So not to say any names, but that's something that happened.
McDonald's is the one place where they seem to have that first window.
You gave it away.
Of all the places, all the like Wendy's, the Taco Bells, they've shifted to the one window. McDonald's is staying strong with the 2 windows.
McDonald's does the 2 lanes now. I like the 2 lanes.
Ah, yes, the dual lane.
It's a modern
Love the 2
thing.
lane.
But then
You need to know. You need to be looking, though, and seeing what time that person's
stressful.
order finished and when
Stressful.
my
Gotta
order
merge
finished,
in
and
that
making
lane.
sure we're going at the right time, and we don't want to be cutting in line, and then no one's cutting us in line. Then when you get to the window, you have to make sure, like, just read me back my order real quick, because I don't want to pay $47 when I ordered just a plain cheeseburger because we went in the wrong order.
You guys know who has the best drive-thru though, right?
Who's that, I mean?
It's Chick-fil-A, man.
Oh.
Because
They have so many. They've added a window.
No, not a window.
But it's just a person in front next to you.
window.
You're like 3 wide now.
Now they're 3 wide, and you're parked there, and a guy just runs out with an iPad, says, "What do you want?" And so, like, I don't have to wait in line. Pretty much, all I got to do is wait for everyone to pick up their food. But I've already ordered.
The 2 Chick-fil-A's closest to me were not built for the amount of traffic that a Chick-fil-A gets. It's in a tiny parking lot, and the entire shopping center is affected. But during the pandemic, they turned the parking lot into a giant serpentine line so they can fit like 45 cars through the parking line. And it's an incredible system. Like, I will give them credit. They know how in demand their food is, and they build a process accordingly.
I wish they weren't so hateful, though.
Yeah.
But those sandwiches are delicious.
Nuggets, man.
Open your doors on Sunday, man.
Polynesian sauce.
I always want to go there on Sunday. It's
Yes,
crazy.
it's
You ever
great
do that
Sunday
too?
food. It's great Sunday
is.
food.
It's a bad it's a bad equation they have there.
The news just broke here that Rachel Nichols has been taken off of sideline reporter duties here. This is interesting, I mean, for a number of different reasons, because her job has been made more difficult by the commentary. But to your point earlier about how it isn't leadership to just react to the reaction, they've had this festering for a year in-house. They didn't make a decision of any sort until it was out in front of us, until there was something to be reacted to. And they're saying in the corporate quotes that this is the best way to avoid distraction during the NBA Finals, or making it about something other than the NBA Finals, which they do need to do with their corporate partner. I wouldn't even be surprised, I mean, if their corporate partner, the league, was involved in the helping shape this decision, because it's a complicated decision to make, that you haven't punished anybody for a year among the stars, but you did in the 36th paragraph of this New York Times story. It was revealed you punished a low-level producer for admitting to HR that as a black woman, she took the video to another black woman to show what she was up against in-house.
Yeah, no, but it goes back to what Jamel so eloquently pointed out, is that it's bad management all throughout. Not bad management now in this month or in this week, but months and months, and as you said, a year. You had a year lead time. We knew it happened. We knew it existed. We knew it made the rounds. We knew people had been admonished and disciplined, but they didn't do anything else, anything other than react to there's a reaction. And I said it earlier, I'll say it again. ESPN is a very sensitive beast. You told me this a long time ago, Dan. You said the elephant with the fly around it, but ESPN is the elephant that actually cares what the fly has to say. And so whether it's a Deadspin article, whether it's a tweet that goes quote unquote viral, whatever it is, in this case it's a New York Times expose, they're really reactive to that and not necessarily to the internal signs of things happening and a need to address it at once.
I don't know if the audience is as galled by this as I am, this portion of it, but that a year of inactivity when it comes to whatever it is that the leadership was supposed to be, and what you get belched out at the end is New York Post, and you stain Maria Taylor? That's right. That's how 3 days before the story comes out in the New York Times, that's how you lead? That is like, that's dirty, man.
Right.
Like of all the things you could have done in the last year, and that's what gets done 3 days beforehand.
And Dan, I think you made a great point that might have slipped under the radar. The idea that where the New York Post was the one that did it, right? And they have a history of carrying out or reporting source material.
They have a history, period.
Right.
They have a political history now. They've got a history across decades.
I'm talking about specifically with regards to ESPN, because another friend of mine, Michelle Beadle, went through a similar thing when she was at Loggerheads at Get Up. And what came out was an absolute hit piece painting her to be this tyrant who doesn't like to work and things of that nature. And again, Michelle is a close friend of mine, is someone who I work with closely. I've seen up front. I see how she treats people. I know this story, at best, is removing massive amounts of context. At worst, is just plain smearing, right? So when they come back again, and again, they've done, like I said, they have a history. I'm not even talking about New York Post history about as a thoroughly conservative paper in a city that is not, right? I'm talking about specifically their beat on ESPN is typically sourced information that is designed to make the talent look bad. The talent that they want to look bad, they're going to look bad in those materials.
I think that the discerning listeners from among you can sort of look at all of that and realize that that is a context that is absent in much of what it is that you're reading. That New York Times piece did not happen in a couple of days. That cannot happen in a couple of days. And the only thing to look for in terms of roots on stories like this, when you're getting out of nowhere, I mean, because I remember reading that story and being like, where did this come from that Maria Taylor is asking for Stephen A. Smith money? Why is this being put someplace, and by whom, to disparage Maria Taylor? Before I read the New York Times story, and it didn't become clear for me until 3 days later, where I'm wondering, why is this happening? Oh, this is why that happened. That I think should bother the audience listening to this. The idea of in the shadows, that is what happened when some people had partial information, and that's what passed for leadership, to call that paper and from the anonymous shadows lob that bomb at Maria Taylor specifically, who did nothing to deserve any of this except her job well.
Right. I think the big takeaway is, if you're looking at the story as Maria versus Rachel, you're missing the point. The story really is ESPN versus
I think that is what people are looking at. I think that what they're looking at for 35 paragraphs in that story is juicy soap opera means nothing. It's nothing. It's not actually something that it's impactful systemically. It's just a thing to, I'm not saying it's not interesting, because I understand why and how it's interesting. I'm saying it's micro versus macro, and we're focused on the country, and the internet is focused on the micro.
Well, I will say the one element of the story that is macro that a lot of people seized upon is a general motif that white people are supportive publicly of black causes, but then privately not. And I think Amin brought up a really interesting example, which is one I thought of earlier, which is the Liam Neeson thing, the quote that we play on the show all the time, which is, oh, don't you think there should be gender equality? Yes. Well, do you want to take a pay cut? No. And so, like, while I think Rachel Nichols has every right to think that she deserves to host the NBA Finals, like, at some point, you do have to publicly and privately back your black coworkers in situations like this. So that's the macro, I think, in the story.
Well, you say in situations like this, and I think I'm with Amin on most people, whether or not, no matter how principled, if it comes to there is one job available, there's one piece of property, it's not sharing property. I think most people choose selfishly there, no matter their principle.
That I've been contractually promised, by the way. Not kind of hints.
Another point that's not irrelevant, that it's in my contract that you're not to give this job to somebody else.
Look, I'll be honest with you. Like all those people on Twitter who are like, she doesn't support black women because she doesn't want to give up her job. How many of y'all would give up your job for someone of a different ethnic group?
But isn't that the point? But that's the point of the movement, though. I mean, is like people in power at some point have to either have their power taken from them or have to kind of acquiesce to changing tides.
You've got the wrong people in power, though. You've got the wrong people in power. I'm sitting here still talking to you about the New York Post, and you're telling me about Rachel Nichols' power, while Amin's telling you that Woj runs the whole thing.
That's the big takeaway there. That's why I said, are you looking at this as Maria versus Rachel, or are you looking at this as ESPN versus everybody, right? Because at the end of the day, Rachel doesn't have power. She doesn't. She doesn't have that power. And what she is fighting for and what she is fighting against are the same things that many of us are. Obviously, Maria's fight is harder as a black woman. It's harder than mine as a black man. It's harder than Rachel's as a white woman. But we're all fighting it, because we're all fighting against a management group that looks at ESPN and says, "I miss the good old days when it was just Keith and Dan and the Big Show and none of this diversity or Black Lives Matter or Me Too or any of that stuff."
But again, the quote from her is, "If you need to give her more things to do because you're feeling pressure by your crappy longtime record on diversity."
Here's my thing. First of all, we're talking about literally taking something from her, right? Not in general. She don't have a problem with Maria getting any position that she gets. She's getting my job. And I ask, who among us is ready to give up your job, not when you're the top dog or whatever, but just another pawn on the chessboard. Number two, and this is where I wish I had been more detailed on earlier. The things that we say in private don't have to be tailored. Now, the sentiment of what she's saying, I don't think Rachel said, oh, no, I didn't mean that. I think Rachel absolutely meant it in terms of taking what's mine because you as a company are bad at this and you're panicking and this is the solution you came up with, right? It's absolutely the sentiment I believe is sincere, right? But at the same time, if she were to express this sentiment publicly, would she have used those words? Or said in that way? Probably not. She probably would have been more measured and thought about it.
But that's the macro thing. I mean, the macro thing is in public you say one thing and in private you say another.
No, but when people say that, what they're inferring there or implying is something like I said, like, yeah, I love potato chips, and then off there, oh my God, potato chips are the worst, aren't they? A total dichotomy, a difference on the spectrum of, yeah, I said this thing, but I don't believe it at all. Rachel believes in all those ideals, right? And just because at some point the intersectionality of it landed on her doorstep and she was like, yeah, I kind of worry about my career too, that doesn't invalidate everything else that she said or believed in or behaved as throughout her entire career.
I think Whittingham, the macro point is that putting Maria Taylor on a hosting gig for the NBA Finals doesn't actually amount to the type of change that the movement wants to see. Like having all of these white people decide who gets to do what is the problem. That the problem is that what Rachel Nichols was saying is that you have a lot of white people in charge who are right-leaning, conservative Trump supporters. That's the macro thing. Like, this is a tiny thing that ESPN is trying to do, right? Like, this is just deciding who's hosting an NBA Finals. It's obviously a big deal to both of those women. It's their jobs, but that's not the macro level of what any of this conversation is supposed to, achieve.
But those things only happen one bit at a time. And gestures like that, even though they are just gestures, are still meaningful, right? In some capacity.
Sure, but that doesn't mean people are going to be happy about losing something that.
Oh, I agree, but
does that mean because Rachel's upset that something that was contractually promised to her that she fought an uphill battle to get to, right? Is it wrong for her to be upset about that? Does that mean she doesn't care about black women, which is what people are saying?
No, but I also don't think you can dismiss it because they have a crappy record on diversity. Like, the point is that you need to assign merit to Maria Taylor. Right? Like, you need to say, well, she also has somewhat earned that position.
She has, and Rachel said as much.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel said as much in the private conversation. She didn't have to tailor that part, but she did because she actually believes it.
I think, Whittingham, you're right. And I think, we all agree that what Rachel Nichols said was, somewhat indefensible, right? I mean, even Amin thinks that. But there's more context to it, and, it's just now pitting them against each other instead of looking at the whole issue and the whole system in place.
It's lazy and it's too easy.
And Dan, to get back to your point, I am ashamed to admit that it's somewhat worked on me because I did read the New York Times story and think, oh yeah, Maria Taylor, she was just in that news because she asked for Stephen A. money. And that was the first thing that popped in my head as I started to read the piece. And then you read the piece, you're like, holy shit, this has nothing to do with how much Maria Taylor wants. And very clearly, this is much bigger than just that.
I'll find fascinating because you're talking about, this is a fascinating career move she has to make because I can't even imagine what's happening behind the scenes with the negotiating of her people. How much will it cost to kick this down the road 30 days so that you do not quit on us during the finals? And if there's an amount of money,
what a power move that would be.
Oh my God. I am so interested to see what if she quits during the finals. I'm not sure it's not a better career move for her than staying there. If look, I'm not putting this on her. She doesn't have any responsibility other than to get the great job that she wants to get out of this situation. But if she's been as strongly activist as she has been behind the scenes on trying to get ESPN to curb and change real behavior, and she quits during the finals and there's no amount of Disney money that keeps her there, she's got a real interesting decision to make beyond leverage and beyond power moves that get paid.
Well, I mean, I trust your judgment on character, so I'm willing to give Rachel the benefit over here. But all the blame lays directly on ESPN. If they were better in the diversity hires, none of this would be happening. And to put that hit piece out on Maria on the New York Post was shameful.
You guys have the sound to close us out of both Liam Neeson there in some of the most famous sound that we've had around here. And also I want to give Chris Cody the ability to laugh at Whittingham because the show was moving too fast after 4 days off. And even professional broadcaster Whittingham couldn't keep up with it. So Liam Neeson sound, please.
There's a lot of discussion about it and a lot of healthy and necessary discussion about it because the disparity sometimes is disgraceful.
How do you think we can move past that?
We're starting, and it has to start, and it's starting with these extraordinary actresses and brave ladies, and we as men have got to be part of it. We started it, so we have to be part of the solution.
So would you take a pay cut to kind of equal things out?
No, pay cut? No. That's going too far. No, there has to be parity. There just has to be.
And Chris Cody, let's hear what we have here. You've been smirking and smiling. You've been radiant all show today because Whittingham got on the treadmill and it was moving too fast.
Hit it, Roy.
I don't know, Jess. I still think like if in any workplace,
a little dance there.